is Encore.
Cool.
The stories behind the songs.
Thank you.
Here's iHeartRadio's Miles Galloway.
Boom, boom, boom. I'm Miles Galloway, and this is the story of Charli XCX's Boom Clap. What does it mean to you when I say the word brat? What even is a brat at this point? Are you brat? Am I brat? Full disclosure, I actually took a BuzzFeed quiz to determine just how brat I actually am, and I'm sad to say it told me nothing. In 2024, we learned what brat was and wasn't, thanks to Charli XCX. Here she is trying to explain to the world what the word actually means to her.
You're just like that girl who is a little messy and likes to party and like maybe says some like dumb things sometimes, who like feels herself but then also like maybe has a breakdown, but kind of like parties through it. It's very honest, it's very blunt, a little bit volatile. Yeah, like does like dumb things, but like it's brat, you're brat.
Yes, brat, or specifically Brat Summer, was one of the biggest trends in 2024, even though a lot of people didn't even realize it originated from Charli XCX's album of the same name. But the English singer-songwriter-producer broke into the mainstream and political discourse when she announced that Vice President and the losing presidential candidate Kamala Harris is Brat on Twitter, or X. The tweet went viral, mostly after Harris's campaign team embraced the cosign, even making their header image, Kamala HQ, in the iconic neon green color and Arial typeface. But while Charli XCX is often viewed as a fringe pop artist for making whatever type of music she wants, in 2024 she forced the issue. Her album Brat, arguably her least commercial release, reached number 3 on the US album chart, not to mention number 1 in her home of the UK and number 2 in Canada. On top of that, her collaboration with Billie Eilish, a bonkers remix of the song Guess, became one of the most talked about songs of the year. It also had me questioning, do I own enough underwear? Nevertheless, Charli XCX had a major breakthrough in 2024, but it wasn't exactly her first rodeo. She's been flirting with stardom since she was a teenager. Charli was born Charlotte Emma Aitchison on August 2nd, 1992 in Cambridge, England, and raised in Bishop Stortford in the countryside near Hertfordshire by her parents John Aitchison and Shamira Chowdhury. Her dad was a free-spirited entrepreneur and former concert promoter in Scotland, and her mum was a nurse turned air stewardess of Gujarati Indian heritage, originally from Uganda. She would tell Vogue that she grew up in 2 half lives, saying, "When I would go to visit my mum's family, I felt very Indian. It was all the classic scenes of my nani and bappa cooking with Bollywood films playing in the background and everybody speaking Gujarati. But then I'd go home to this other world, which was largely white. It was almost like I would experience the Indian part of my identity only on the weekends." While attending private school at Bishop Stortford College from the age of 4 to 18, Charli says she didn't experience bullying because of her heritage. However, she did feel different from the other kids, telling GQ, "I had friends, but my school was full of blonde white girls and I was this half Indian girl with frizzy hair and different interests. That always made me feel a little bit rejected. I thought if I made music, people would think I was interesting. Deep down, one of my biggest fears was being boring." Charli was encouraged by her dad to stand out from the crowd, which wasn't hard for her, she would tell Apple Music's Julie Adenuga.
I was definitely sort of the kind of weird kid at school. I had friends, for sure.
Yes.
But my dad was very much always encouraging me to be like different for this, just for the sake of it, you know, which I think is good advice. But sometimes like when you're young and you get that advice and you really go for it, it does like lead to some like quite problematic like craziness.
Yeah.
Like, so I was like wearing kind of like 2 different shoes.
Did that? That's fine.
I would use face paint instead of makeup.
Okay.
So I'd have like one blue eye and one like neon pink eye, and I'd draw like swirls all over my face. I never brushed my hair. So I looked crazy. I looked really mad.
Not conforming didn't help Charli with her social status early on. She admitted she wasn't cool as a kid, telling the Evening Standard, "In 1999, I was a little loser, a nerd kid running around trying to pretend to be Baby Spice. I was not very cool. I imagine most young girls now are really cool and in touch, but I was not." Aside from her mum playing the Monkees and Bread and her dad recommending Electric Light Orchestra, Charli wasn't exposed to much music by her parents. Like a lot of girls her age, she fell in love with Britney Spears and the Spice Girls and became obsessed with the idea of becoming a pop star. She would tell the Gulf Times, "I started writing my own songs when I was about 8 and used to bully my friends into singing with me as a kind of mini version of the Spice Girls. As I grew older, I still wanted to be a pop performer and came to regard Britney Spears as my musical role model." As Charli approached her teenage years, however, music would become a priority and take over her life. Charli reached her teenage years around the same time that a new social networking site called Myspace was launched. Now, for those of you who don't remember, Myspace was wildly popular in the 2000s, predating Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok as an online meeting place for friends to reunite. However, it quickly became a major tool in how music was promoted and consumed. As CD sales began to drop and digital music downloads began to rise, as well as illegal music downloading on file-sharing services like Napster and LimeWire, MySpace became a crucial player in how people access music. I still keep in touch with Tom to this day. MySpace was adopted by many new artists, especially of the emo variety looking to be discovered, and converted into a free platform for listeners, mostly hungry teenagers, to discover this music, including Charli. It was on MySpace where her musical horizon was expanded beyond the bubblegum pop and top 40 radio she had grown up on. But it went beyond just listening to music for Charli. By finding all of this new music, she was inspired to begin making her own. She would tell Sounds,
When I was 14, I had a MySpace page, and I started I found out about Ed Banger Records and all of the artists on their MySpace, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I just kind of wanted to try and make like French electro for a while, which I sucked at. But that's kind of like what started me actually making music, you know.
Mimicking the sounds of the popular blog house movement at the time, Charli took inspiration from the Ed Banger label and its artists such as Justice and Uffy, trying to replicate the music she loved with what she called an old crap Yamaha keyboard. She put some of her songs on her MySpace page thinking nobody would hear them, but in no time, Charli was contacted by a promoter who put on raves and warehouse parties in Hackney Wick, East London, asking if she would like to play live at some of his events. Because she was underage at the time, she had to get a ride from her parents. Oh yes, that awkward car ride with your folks to a rave where everybody's off their heads on drugs. Surprisingly, her parents were cool about it. She would tell Rolling Stone, "They did go to quite a few raves with me, which was really funny. There were some weird age-clashing moments, like when my dad got offered to buy some MDMA, but he thought that they had said MDF, which is a type of wood flooring. So my dad was like, well, I don't have any room in my car at the moment, but give me your number." And the guy was obviously thinking, well, this guy must want to buy a lot of MDMA. As for my mum, she would always get mistaken for a massive stoner and get offered weed. But those shows helped Charli find herself as an artist. "I think it was at those shows that I picked up my performance style," she continued saying to Rolling Stone. "Everyone at those shows was out of their mind on ketamine and tossing glitter around, so being only 14, I felt like I really had to prove myself. So while all of her classmates were at school, Charli was hanging out and performing at raves, mind you, with her parents, which, as she will tell you, wasn't exactly cool, but still, she was becoming a proper artist. The next step was to release some music and give herself a name cooler than Charlotte Aitchison. She decided to use her old MSN Messenger username, Kiss Charli Kiss. She explained what the name meant to Much Music's Cam Lindsay, who I should point out is now iHeartRadio's Cam Lindsay.
I just call myself Charli, but it is Charli XCX, and it stands for Kiss Charli Kiss, but I guess there was this kind of online web confusion about my name, which came from my MSN screen name when I was 14, which is very cool. And yeah, I mean, it meant Kiss Charli Kiss, but when I got signed to a record label, they asked me what it meant, and I, for a joke, said it meant X-rated to see how they would react. They reacted badly, obviously, and I was like, well, that's fine, because I was joking, and then somehow since then, it's kind of leaked out, and now everyone thinks it means that, but it doesn't. It means Kiss Charli Kiss, which is very PG.
He's the best. Wait, who wrote that? Some of Charli's earliest songs showed off her age, with song titles like I Want to Be Darth Vader and my personal favourite, Dinosaur Sex. That's with an exclamation point, by the way. These songs actually came back to haunt Charli when she appeared on The Tonight Show, where Jimmy Fallon ambushed her by quoting some lyrics. Check it out.
You've evolved from your MySpace songs.
Oh no!
I know about those. And what was the one? Is it dinosaur sex?
Yes.
What? I'm sorry to bring these up, but come on.
Yeah, dinosaur sex. That
Own it.
was, I'm owning it. Yeah, that one went something like T-Rex, dinosaur sex, watch me war, watch me roar, watch me be like a dinosaur.
Come on, that's an anthem.
With that song in her repertoire, Charli decided to take the next step. She took out a loan from her very understanding parents in order to make her first album in 2007. She called it 14, after her age at the time, a trend that would be adopted by Adele the following year. Did Adele copy Charli XCX? Surely not, seeing as 14 didn't find much of an audience. In fact, Charli now disowns her album release, which she calls more of an experiment. She would later tell Stella magazine, "I don't count that as the beginning of my career, but whatever. Everyone did embarrassing shit when they were 14. My mistakes just live online for everyone to hear." And because things live online forever, you can actually listen to 14 and check out Charli's defunct MySpace page, which are both something to experience. The first single from 14 was a song called Francesca, which was about typical posh girls from Cambridge who are generally boring all the time, according to Charli. It wasn't her proudest moment, telling Self-Titled magazine, "I know songs like Francesca are not my finest hour. I think that it also works to my advantage. People who knew my earlier stuff were like, wow, that's rubbish. The expectations were so low that the new stuff will really impress them." While promotional copies of 14 were shared with friends and members of the press thanks to a company called, Orgy Music, the album was never commercially available. However, a copy of the CD found its way into the hands of Atlantic Records, which offered Charli a record deal. Though she was still in school at the time, Charli was learning how to become a visual artist at the same time through her schoolwork. Like that one video where she stuffed burgers into her bikini.
I actually did like school. I really liked art.
Yeah.
And I made a lot of really weird video art. Like weird, like bad video art. I went and bought 25 burgers from Burger King. And then I stood in my underwear in the bathtub and put Pond de Floor by Major Lazer. I know. I put Pond de Floor by Major Lazer was playing, and I rubbed all the burgers all over my body, and then I handed it in as my final exam piece, and I was like, "This is performance art." And yeah, I mean, I got an A.
Bruv, you're chatting.
So
are you lying?
No.
How old were you?
Probably 17.
Who cleaned the bathtub after?
My mum
No
was just
way.
like, "What are you doing? What is this?"
What was the...
Funnily enough, that wouldn't be the weirdest video Charli XCX would ever put out into the world. At first, Charli XCX wasn't sure about signing with Asylum, a subsidiary of Atlantic Records. She was only 18 and enjoying making weird rave music on her own terms. She would tell The Telegraph, "I didn't want to make pop music. I just wanted to make weird art performance songs that I could play at these places and dress up like Marge Simpson or whatever." But she signed the deal, and after suffering what she calls a total breakdown, which made her drop out of school during her second year at the University College of London Slade School of Fine Art. It didn't help that she felt lost as an artist, unsure of what direction to take. It wasn't until she went to Los Angeles that Charli would begin to find her sound, working with songwriter and producer Ariel Rechtshaid, who would go on to win Grammy Awards for his work with Adele and Vampire Weekend. Charli would tell The Guardian, "We really connected. We only had 2 hours together, and in that time we wrote Stay Away. I was freaking out. I had found a piece of myself in this crazy world where people are trying to drag you apart and make you into something. That's when things started to come together." She also hit it off with Swedish producer Patrick Berger, who you may remember from our episode of Robin's Dancing on My Own. He began sharing beats with Charli to use for her album. One of those songs was called You're the One. The other she called I Love It, which you may have heard once or twice or 2,000 times in your life. She told Red Bull Music Academy, "I actually really thought I Love It was the worst song ever. I honestly didn't know what it was about when I wrote it in 20 minutes in my hotel room with my boyfriend sitting there. He was like, 'It sounds bad.' I was like, okay, I'm going to stop making this. And then I spent hours making another song. Then I went and saw Patrick Berger the next day and I was like, look at this amazing song I spent 5 hours on. He was like, cool, do you have anything else? And I was like, I did this really weird one. It's called I Love It. And he was like, that's the one. With Patrick's vote of confidence, Charli finished I Love It, but immediately decided against releasing it as her own song. She would tell Complex, I wrote the song in Sweden, but it wasn't right for me. I knew it was cool. Patrick, the producer, knew Icona Pop, and they came to the studio and really liked it. I liked what they did with it. They kept my voice on the record, so it's a girl power trip thing. It was really cool. They put a twist on it that I don't think I could have if it was my record. Released by Icona Pop in May 2012, I Love It was credited to the Swedish duo, but featuring Charli XCX, who sings backing vocals. The song was a top 10 hit in the US and Canada and reached number 1 in the UK. And while it may not have done as much for getting Charli XCX the recognition she deserved as an artist, it certainly put her on the map as a songwriter. Around the same time, Charli had begun releasing her own singles in advance of her debut album. Nuclear Seasons and You're the One were bigger hits with indie music fans and found Charli a cult following amongst those looking for more alternative-leaning pop. A third single, You, Ha Ha Ha, generated more mainstream interest, largely due to some controversy caused by its music video, which featured Charli and her crew partying in a gun factory full of automatic weapons and lipstick bullets. She explained the concept behind the video to Much Music.
So me and the director, Ryan Andrews, are both big Grindhouse movie fans. Him more than me, but he educates me on that front. And we just started watching a load of Grindhouse movies, like Pom Pom Girls and Coffee, and then we watched like the homages, like Planet Terror, and I'm a big Rose McGowan fan too, so that was kind of cool. And we basically just wanted to make a badass video with these kind of like Grindhouse-esque female roles, you know, these girls who are like in charge and like doing things for themselves, but then instead of it being a violent thing, it's like they're firing out bullets of love, these like lipstick bullets, and making the world a pinker place. That's kind of the aim, I guess. And I suppose it was also like the styling was inspired by my favourite movies, like The Addams Family and Party Monster, and, you know, referencing like the rave culture that I kind of came from, I suppose.
The timing couldn't have been worse for her, as the video debuted just weeks after the mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in the state of Connecticut. Charli issued a statement explaining that, quote, "The idea is to make lipstick, not war, but I'd like to say sorry if anyone has mistaken this video for advocating violence." Her debut album, True Romance, was released in April 2013, 1 full year after it was originally scheduled to come out. Charli explained to Much Music that she delayed its release to make sure it was perfect.
Well, I delayed it twice just because I wasn't happy with it. And I don't know, it's like, you know, your first record, and if it's shit, then you have to live with that forever. And it wasn't shit at any point, but it definitely wasn't perfect. And in my eyes now, it's perfect, and I know I can live with it and sing the songs on it every night, all the time. So, you know, I just wanted to make it right. I wanted to get the artwork right. I wanted to get the mixes right. So I said no, and my label kind of freaked a bit. But I think, you know, like when you're in control of your project, they know, they have confidence in you that you're making the right decisions. So I think I made the right decision.
With its heavy synth sound and taking inspiration from music like The Cure, Gwen Stefani, and 90s bubblegum pop, as well as internet culture like Tumblr and online relationships, True Romance was more successful at pleasing critics than it was with finding a commercial audience, leaning more towards a darker side of pop music, an interest she explained in detail to Much Music.
But I think I'm attracted to the darker side of pop music just because I feel like it's more raw and more, like, I don't know, beautiful actually, in a weird kind of way. Like Robert Smith is like my dream man, and he's very dark but very beautiful, you know? Like, I imagine he like cries while sitting inside the moon or something. That's kind of his hobby. I don't know, I've never met him. It's probably really embarrassing that I even just said that. But yeah, I just feel like you can kind of access like more interesting words and melodies when you're kind of experimenting with the darker side of pop music.
Having True Romance out in the world finally allowed Charli to demonstrate her abilities as both a singer and a songwriter. To support the album, she was given supporting slots on big tours by Coldplay, Paramore, and Marina and the Diamonds. Charli was finally able to enjoy the fruits of her labor, and soon she'd be feeling fancy. Charli had already begun writing her second album by the time she released True Romance. Following the success of I Love It, expectations were high for Charli's next move, yet she wanted nothing more than to curb them. So instead of working on some new pop bangers, she retreated to Sweden to work on a punk album. To her, punk was a way to express herself and give the middle finger to the music industry. While she decided not to go whole hog and fully commit to a punk rock sound, she decided to take that energy and fuse it with her own style of pop music. Essentially, Charli was putting her own spin on pop punk, because that's really what she was trying to make. She told DIY Mag, "I think the problem was that I started caring too much, really. I just started overthinking things and I needed to not give a fuck. Making punk music is the perfect recipe for that. I needed to not give a shit about what was going on. I wanted to just make music and lie on the floor in the studio screaming for hours on end, getting out all of this shit that was inside of me. It worked. I think it led me to a more creative place." So with some help from big names including Rivers Cuomo of Weezer, Rostam Batmanglij, Greg Kurstin and Benny Blanco, Charli turned herself into a very shouty girl power girl gang Bow Wow Wow. Bow Wow Wow being the 80s band who sang that song, I Want Candy. You know the song? I Want Candy. At the same time she was making music for her album, Charli worked on a new song with up-and-coming Australian rapper Iggy Azalea, who was getting a lot of radio play in the US. The two came up with a hip-hop track called Fancy, featuring Iggy rapping the verses and Charli singing an irresistible hook on the chorus. For them, it was just about giving mainstream pop something new that it hadn't heard before.
I think that rap songs, that doesn't happen a lot with rap songs nowadays. Iggy came up with the idea for the video and she really nailed that. And I think it's also, there's not many awesome female collaborations. Ones that are really kind of type, girl power. Ones that weren't just thrown together to get a #1 record. This was not, I had no profile, and Iggy was not where she is now when this happened. This was a very honest collaboration.
Like I Love It, Charli was listed as a featured artist, not the main artist on the song, but Fancy gave both her and Iggy their biggest hit, topping the charts in the US for 7 consecutive weeks, while also reaching #1 in Canada and the UK. Much of the success was due to the music video, which paid homage to the 1995 movie Clueless and earned 4 nominations at the 2014 MTV Video Music Awards, including Video of the Year. Once again, Charli scored a massive hit with a collaboration, which she told Much Music was something she believed was beneficial to her career.
I think collaborations are a very big part of what I do, so I don't mind if people discover me that way, I think it's also nice that when they do discover me, there is a whole record that they can listen to if they want to, I put my first record out last year, so it doesn't matter to me, every song that I'm a part of is part of me, so I'm just happy people like what I do,
With another hit under her belt, Charli was ready to jump back into her next album. But what happened next was completely unexpected. In the summer of 2014, with Fancy sitting at #1, Charli scored another big hit, the first from her upcoming second album. Originally, the song came from sessions for True Romance with Patrick Berger, his brother Frederick, and Stefan Grassland all contributing to it. The song's title, Boom Clap, came from one of Patrick's beats, a booming kick drum followed by a clapping snare drum to give the chorus an onomatopoeic effect. I can only assume it was a reference to boom bap, a hip-hop term from the 90s that also used onomatopoeia to represent its sounds. But with a thunderous drum beat and syncopated rhythm, combined with a bubbling synth and hook-laden chorus, the mid-tempo song had hit written all over it. But finishing it didn't come easy for them. After beginning the writing process, they took a break and went back to it, which is not how Charli likes to work, she told The Telegraph.
I hate spending time on songs. So for me, the fact that we wrote Boom Clap so long ago and then revisited it and we tried to change the verses a couple of times, that's my nightmare way of writing a song. I like to write a song in a few hours, move on to the next one, never think about it again. In my head, it's the first idea is always the best idea. And with Boom Clap, we went back to the original verses, for example, just because I don't know, I feel when you hear music and you react kind of spontaneously to it and instantly, that's the kind of most natural reaction and maybe the most obvious melody reaction. So that's why I just like to write quickly.
Boom Clap had actually been sitting on the shelf gathering dust for a year when Charli decided to release it. Originally, the idea was to give it to another artist, much like Charli did with I Love It. One artist she really wanted to write for was Hilary Duff, the former teen idol best known for playing the lead role in Disney's Lizzie McGuire series. For some reason, Charli was fixated on writing a song for Duff, but it didn't work out. Here she is explaining to The Telegraph why.
I actually initially really wanted to give it to Hilary Duff because at the time that we wrote it, she was making a comeback, and I was a Hilary Duff fan and a Lizzie McGuire fan, so I really wanted her to have this song. And we reached out to her people, but they were like, no, this song isn't cool enough for Hilary, and I was like bummed out. But when it came out, she tweeted me and was like, I wish I'd heard it. If I'd heard it, I would have kept it.
No way.
And I was like, too bad. But no, there was no beef. It was good. But yeah, so that's how that song came about.
Just give me a second here. I'm trying to imagine what it would sound like had Lizzie McGuire recorded Boom Clap. And I can safely say the world is better off with Charli XCX's version in our lives. Of course, Hilary Duff later elaborated on her disappointment in an interview with Pop Justice, saying, I didn't know that I had an option to have it. It's my favourite song on the radio right now. I remember there was talk about my label trying to get us to write together, and I was in New York and I was flying home, so I didn't have time to have a session with her. I am literally obsessed with that song, and I didn't know that it was an option for me. If she wants to give it to me now, I'll still take it. Ah, nice try there, Hilary. You blew it. But Hilary's loss was Charli's gain, and she decided to release her own version, to see what would happen. At the same time, Charli's next album, called Sucker, was ready to go, but her team got an interesting offer. And so the release of Boom Clap arrived with the theatrical release of The Fault in Our Stars, the film adaptation of John Green's mega-selling, tear-jerking young adult novel. Like, for real, when I say mega-selling, I mean that book has sold more than 23 million copies. And Charli was set to have the lead single from the film's soundtrack, which made sense considering the lyrics. She described the song to Billboard as very euphoric and enthusiastic about romance. It's about wanting to fall in love, but there's this hint of sadness in that. Yet in the coming-of-age film, the song is featured in one of its more uplifting moments. Here she is talking about it with Screen Slam on the Fault in Our Stars red carpet event.
I think music's important for a film just because it really drives through emotion. Like, I cry all the time when I watch movies, but I cry even more when I listen to music, and the two together is just like emo fest. So I think it's important that music is always like spot on, and I really enjoy a good soundtrack, and I think this one is really good.
The music video was a standard affair for any song tied to a film, featuring Charli in various parts of Amsterdam where some of the movie was shot. A second video for the song was shot in Tokyo, once again featuring Charli enjoying the city. Fun fact about the second music video, it was made strictly for the Japanese market and can only be viewed on YouTube in Japan, which is why I had to scour Reddit to watch it and found it on the XCX Heads subreddit. You can find just about anything online these days, folks. While soundtracks these days aren't as important as they once were, The Fault in Our Stars was a big seller, as in reaching number 5 on the US albums chart, selling more than 500,000 copies in the US alone big. Which nowadays is practically unheard of for a soundtrack album, even with Ed Sheeran on the soundtrack. It was Charli's Boom Clap that became the big song. Released on April 11th, 2014, 2 months before the film and soundtrack, the song was a slow riser in the charts, first reaching the top 40 on its own, then regaining steam once the film caught fire throughout the summer. The Fault in Our Stars would go on to make more than $300 million in the box office, no doubt helping Boom Clap become a massive hit. The song peaked in the Billboard Hot 100 at number 8, making it Charli XCX's biggest hit as a lead artist, even still to this day, despite all of her success since. It also reached number 8 in Canada, as well as number 6 in the UK. In an interview with Digital Spy, Charli would describe Boom Clap as definitely the most pop song that I've ever written for myself, and it's a very simple song, I guess. It's about an epic love story, and I feel like most people have that in their life, so I guess it's easy to connect to. All of a sudden, Charli XCX, the solo artist, was a star, without anyone else's help. But with the success of Boom Clap, came yet another album delay, thanks to the song taking off. Charli didn't have time.
The reason for delaying the record was just because, I didn't realise how successful Boom Clap would be, and I didn't want to put out an album with people only having heard one song from it, because I don't want to be considered a one-hit wonder. I don't think that my record is entirely represented by Boom Clap. It's like one side of the album, it's a very soft side of the record. The album as a whole is kind of much more raw and wild and aggressive than boom clap is, and I don't want people to think that they're like gonna get a whole record of boom clap when they're actually gonna get like some kind of more crazy stuff going on the album.
Charli XCX finally released her second album, Sucker, on December 15th, 2014, and performed a bunch of those songs as part of the iHeartRadio Jingle Ball Tour 2014. Hey, how about that? Of course, Boom Clap was technically the lead single from the album, which she said was largely influenced by bands such as The Hives, Weezer, and Ramones.
I think I wanted to make a record that was kind of like semi-aggressive and raw, just because I did feel a lot of like aggression and anger post the success of I Love It. I felt mad that I felt like I didn't quite, I don't know, there was just like weird stuff going on with that song, and like it really opened a lot of strange doors for me in the music industry where people were just asking me to like replicate that song over and over again, you know? And that made me mad, so I think I got a lot of aggression out whilst making Sucker, and that was just like a natural progression for me.
Sucker didn't exactly move the needle much for Charli XCX, but it did serve as an example of her evolution as an artist in a career that has seen so many unpredictable and innovative turns. It's hard to document just how far Charli XCX has come in the last 10 years and the time I've got left, so I'll just do it for you in a nutshell. She's released 4 more albums since Sucker, including this year's Brat, which has since seen 2 more versions released, including the brilliantly titled remix album, Brat, and it's completely different, but also still Brat. While she hasn't released a single of her own as big as Boom Clap, she did write one of the decade's biggest hits, Señorita by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello. Whether it's writing these huge songs for other artists, her mind-bending productions, her it girl style, or her viral music videos, Charli XCX is a regular trendsetter in music and one of the most versatile and inventive artists in contemporary pop music. And if you don't believe me, listen to Taylor Swift.
In my opinion, I'm about to bring out one of the greatest songwriters that we have going for us right now. She's unbelievable. She's about to perform her #1 smash, Boom Clap. Charli XCX is here, Toronto.
Yes, that happened in Toronto on the 1989 World Tour. Taylor brought Charli out on stage to perform Boom Clap, with Taylor joining in on the chorus. This moment would be followed by Charli becoming the opening act for Taylor's Reputation Stadium tour just a few years later. Charli still recognizes the impact Boom Clap has had on her career, even as she begins to become one of the world's most influential pop stars. While promoting Brat earlier this year, she discussed how her 2014 hit led to bigger and better things for her, telling Billboard, "At the time, I was writing for a lot of other people, and I wanted to be doing that. I knew I probably wouldn't have been in those writing rooms had Boom Clap and those songs not happened the way they happened." And naturally, there was a TikTok dance challenge to the song, which went viral. I'm actually doing it now. I'm Miles Galloway, and that was the story of Charli XCX's Boom Clap on Encore, with new episodes every Thursday.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more great podcasts just like these.